to Ibis Weather on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. This is Sarah with the update for this evening of Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. The reason why I'm including the date is in case people do stumble across this at a later time, so they don't get confused with any of the current dates, as this is going to continue to probably change rather quickly, and I want to make sure everybody is aware of what is current and what isn't. So for today's evening, we're going to go ahead and get started with, as what you can see, the 7-day graphical tropic outlook for the tropics from NOAA and the National Hurricane Center. As you can see, we still currently have three areas of interest. The one most important and the one that everybody's probably going to want to talk about will be Erin, which we'll get to in a moment. We will touch on the other two really quickly. So as the one that we mentioned previously that got a lot of heavy rainfall over in southwest Florida the past few days, and then also causing a lot of rain along the upper Gulf Coast, is now starting to track more toward inland, as they already said she had pretty much, or it has 0% forming into anything 48 hours or above. Because yeah, it still holds true. It's moving inland, and it'll probably be gone by the time tomorrow, if not later on at the update at 11. The second one is still chugging along over there, heading closer to Nova Scotia. They still have it at 10% for both 48-hour development and 7 days. So we'll have to continue to see what that does, but it probably won't form into anything, and it is considered non-tropical right now, but it is still an area of low pressure. And then, of course, Erin, which everybody is wanting to talk about. As you can see, they did update her information at 5, unlike the other two, which had their last updates at 2 because they were already on their way out. So let's go ahead and click on this. Uh, as of today, she did have her cone track to include part of Puerto Rico. So I'm sure people are going to be like, oh my gosh, does it mean we're going to get impacted by her? Are we going to get hit head on by a hurricane? It's still too early to tell. Right now, model consensus is suggesting it's probably not likely. She'll probably travel well to the north of the island, but as we mentioned previously with other storms and just with any kind of tropical system, the cone is just talking about where the eye could travel, right? So the eye could clip Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic as well, um, or it could not. But that depends on how big the actual storm will be, which she has been growing somewhat today, which we'll touch on as well, physically grown into a bigger storm and spreading out as she continues to move west. She probably will continue to grow some physically, meaning her wind field and rain shield and rain bands will grow out. So even if the eye does not clip you guys, you probably could still feel impacts from the hurricane itself as well. Just not this is a category stage that it will be when it passes to your north. Of course, this can all change. She could track further south and west. She could just end up turning to the middle of the sea. We just don't know. We're again talking about like 10 days out. So by the time it gets anywhere close to you guys, it'll be early next week. So you have plenty of time to track. But I will say use this time right now to make sure that you are keeping you're going to make sure you get updates and keeping check of what you need to buy and have on hand. So that would be things such as non-perishable foods, any medicines, including prescriptions that you may need to fill up on. Have your battery chargers ready. Get a little battery charge pack so you can be able to charge any batteries that you may have. If you have a generator, make sure you get gasoline on that. Make sure you have all the food and water you need for everyone for at least 3 days, if not more. Typically, they say just 3 days is like the minimum. I suggest sometimes more because, unfortunately, hurricanes can cause power outages for a long period of time. It's not uncommon, so at least do the bare minimal, but it doesn't hurt to have more on hand just in case. And then also make sure you guys know what your evacuation zone are. If you're in an evacuation zone, what your evacuation path will be and where you guys will go and who you will contact to keep everyone updated as well. So again, now is the time to just be prepared. Um, we may be fine. We may have really no more land impacts from this, including Bermuda might be spared. We just don't know. But again, we are approaching peak hurricane season, so use this storm as a reason to go ahead and make sure that you are prepared. As you know, their key messages for Tropical Storm Erin, which she's still currently a tropical storm. She's expected to become possibly a major hurricane. She could, as I mentioned, could move close enough to the northern Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, so she could produce impacts over those islands. Again, they mentioned that we just don't know where that could be or where that would be. Um, and what people might expect. I mean, chances are if she travels more north, you may just have tropical storm force. And that's depending if that's how wide of, her wind field is for tropical storms. Again, we just don't know. So make sure you are following the updates on the latest and follow someone that you trust. I'm obviously here for you guys if you need updates and want updates more frequently. I'm more than happy to continue to post that. And then they mentioned there's even a greater uncertainty of impacts that might occur in portions of the greater Antilles, the Bahamas, and of course the east coast of the U.S. and Bermuda. And again, mentioned that you should make sure that you are indeed ready, just no matter what, as we approach the peak. I have seen on social media today, including yesterday, but definitely more today, where people are being, in my opinion, a little bit too confident, thinking that the storm won't track um, too close to the U.S. or the islands in the Caribbean. While that is a lovely thought, she is already starting to show that she's kind of doing her own thing, which we'll touch on as well. And as with any of these storms, that's a possibility. And right now, she is tracking a little bit more southwest than what they thought she would. So, which we'll also touch on what's steering that a little bit too. But she's not going to follow whatever guidelines is officially put out completely. They wobble, they move. You saw it with Hurricane Charlie in 2004. And even some would argue Hurricane Helene of 2024 also had some surprises along her way in terms of her track not turning the way they thought she would. So again, just don't get too comfortable yet and get too ahead of yourself thinking that we won't get anything. It's possible, but it's also possible we could. So again, I can't stress enough, don't panic right now. Just make sure you guys are aware and are preparing ahead of time so you can hopefully beat any mad rush that could happen if we do see as we work through towards the weekend anything change in the consensus of the models. I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the cone since everybody loves to see this. Again, the cone is just to give you an idea of where the eye could pass over. So you can see it is on the extreme western side of the edge of it is on the extreme western side of Puerto Rico, and also touching a little bit of the Leeward Islands, the Northern Islands. So that means they could get possibly the eye wall anywhere over there, and possibly it could strengthen between like cat one or two into a major, which could be three, four, or five. Um, there are some models that are showing it could reach up until at least a four. So we do have to wait and see and monitor that because those waters over there are more conducive to a hurricane getting strength and growing and becoming more powerful than where she is currently. And if you also kind of notice, I want to point over here on the cone as well, you do kind of see that they are showing that she's kind of dipping more southward, which seems to be what they think is going to continue to happen before she starts trying to gain some latitude again. Um, and she should become a hurricane sometime between Thursday and early Friday morning, with major sometime between Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. Again, anything major would be considered a category 3 or above for information. Um, so for those who might not be aware, so again, just something to keep an eye on. Again, right now, Puerto Rico doesn't mean they're going to definitely be impacted with it. There have been many times where I live has been in the cone, and the cone has shifted and shrunk away from us. And then at times, the cone grows or it does end up moving over as we get closer to the storm. So again, it's just something to be mindful of as we go forward. And again, I do stress the Caribbean and Bahamas, and of course, the eastern United States and Bermuda. We should also be taking note and just paying attention and start thinking about what we need, what we may need to refill for ourselves and our families ahead of time before the storm. Get familiar with anything that could end up coming from this storm down the line or any other storm as we work our way through the peak of the season. Okay, so, oh, and I did want to mention she did let's see. Okay, so she did gain a little bit forward speed earlier this morning, and apparently she's gone back down from to 22 miles per hour. She was at 23. I do think they think she's going to be slowing down a little bit again, but she has still a pretty fast clip going for a hurricane. Most hurricanes do typically go a little bit on the faster side, but sometimes they do slow down. Unfortunately, it's over. If anyone remembers Hurricane Harvey, that definitely lingered and sat over people. For a long period of time too, unfortunately. So it does happen. I mean, also it was Hurricane Dorian that did famously over the Bahamas. But so far, this storm doesn't seem to be thinking that that will be the case. The reason why you might be wondering why do they expect it to curve northward? It's a very good question. A couple things about that. One is typically this time of year we do have what is called the Bermuda High or the Azores High. It's usually over here, not too far off from Bermuda. It's a high pressure system, so basically it's what's keeping it traveling west at the moment. Earlier this week, they did think that the high was going to be weaker, giving it essentially an escape hatch to go north. But now they're thinking it could be stronger. They will be doing their first flight into the storm on Thursday, and then they'll start getting more information put into the models, and we should start seeing a little bit more consensus and get a little bit more info about where we're thinking the storm is going to go, what weather conditions can impact it, and again where it could go and its strength and timing. So that will be good to know, but we do have to wait a whole nother day. And then probably the models won't be updated until Friday. So probably the Friday is when we'll get the best idea, but they are thinking the Bermuda High will be more west instead of east, which could be the reason why it would turn more north, closer to land where we didn't want it. But again, this tone will change, the models will shift between now and then. So just be again mindful, be prepared, don't panic. We've got plenty of time to continue to watch this. Just start making sure that you are paying attention and taking notes. Okay, let's go ahead and get a current look at what her satellite presentation is. If you remember yesterday, when we saw her yesterday evening, she was definitely doing okay-ish. Not the greatest. As I mentioned yesterday as well, she was surrounded by the Saharan desert, so dry air, which is not her friend, which we'll also show again later on. So that did kind of shear her out a little bit, make her not be so stacked so well, and not be able to get the convection that she needs to be able to grow and bloom into what the storm she wants to be. It does look like she has recovered some. Her satellite presentation is looking a little bit better. Her satellite radar presentation, I should say. As you can see, she does have a lot of moisture kind of to the north or southeast of her, which she can probably pull in. You can definitely see a little bit of the rotation there with her, but she's definitely looks like she's trying to get some of that banding that you would expect with a tropical system. So we'll continue to see where it goes. But I think right now they think she's not any risk of rapid intensification until later on this week, if that at all. I did also speaking about, as I mentioned earlier, the odds and talking about, what are the chances and risk of particularly getting hit here on the US. So I did find this interesting post on X or otherwise known as Twitter, formerly someone named Michael Ferragamo, and he posted that out of 93 tropical cyclones that have passed within 150 miles of her current location, only 6.5% have ever made landfall in the US, which is important and worth noting. Again, we're talking about odds and math here, so I know not everyone's into this stuff, but the notable ones would be Sea Islands Hurricane of 1893. New England, 1938, Gloria, 1985, Ike, 2008, Irma of 2017, which I know probably that name freaks out so many people, and Florence of 2018. I'm glad he does mention here, historically speaking, it's pretty unlikely, but not impossible for her to reach us. So yes, while odds right now may seem on the lower side, anything in the hurricane world can happen, and as we saw last year's season, strange things happen. I would not rule it out. We're also at the 20-year mark of 2005 season, which there is an argument that some of the stuff could be cyclical, so we'll just have to wait and see. But for right now, we'll just see where it goes. But again, there is a percentage, but there's a percentage it won't. I'm not going to say that their odds are correct more so than others, because every storm is different, every day is different, different, weather systems are impacting it and surrounding it, so we just don't know. But I did think that was an interesting thing to bring up for those who might be curious. And to kind of go on the topic of spaghetti models, which as you can see, that's where they kind of had this image of different spaghetti models of the different tracks. Let's go ahead and look at what the Euro model is showing. So as you can see, it's copying then Sea Islands Hurricane a little bit there, was showing it hitting somewhere between Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia. And then most of the others are taking it off to sea. Still pretty wide swath of miles, many miles between it. Obviously, Bermuda is being impacted by some here. And then, of course, you do see some clipping the Carolinas and more toward the Mid Atlantic. And then, of course, Nova Scotia. The black thick line in the middle is kind of the consensus of the middle of all these models. So again, we are seeing a little bit more shifting of a little bit more south, a little bit more west, as you can see, also showing that getting pretty close to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and of course, a little bit, some of them tracking over the Bahamas. Um, so again, nothing set in stone. So if you do see anywhere going anywhere near you where you guys live, don't freak out. These are just models. Again, they will shift from now and tomorrow's posts, including the earlier morning and then of course the video in the evening. So just know that it will continue to change until probably we start getting more input from the hurricane hunters once they fly in, and we get information from other systems that they use to kind of find out where the tracking could go. Let's go ahead and look at the GFS or GEFS, which is our American model. Again, you can see that again it's kind of showing it's taking a little bit of a southward swing and then swinging more up west and northwest. So we do see again a model taking it between Charleston and Savannah. So I'm sure it's probably making some of us quite nervous for those of us who do live in those regions. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, that's just right now, really just the consensus between those two models, and then two others getting pretty close to the US, all the others kind of taking it further out to sea. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, nothing set in stone. It's still too early to tell, which is always good to remind people of. And let me move this quick if I can. Okay, so over here we're looking at what is considered the best track. So to kind of taking comparison of where they thought she would go at a certain time stamp and then where she actually is. So as you can see, she definitely was more southeast coming off of the African coast, started traveling more northwestward, closer to the Cabo Verde Islands or Cape Verde Islands, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And then as you can see, and also it's kind of showing, interestingly enough, it looks like it's showing a little bit of growth of her physical side. So if you see here between some of these, it does show that it looks like she has gotten a little bit bigger from where she was yesterday. Um, but so she climbed up over there, kind of traveled west, ticked up a little bit north, and started ticking back down south, where it looks like she's been on a little bit of a southward trend again. Again, these are all wobbles. People try to get caught up on, oh, wobbling here, wobbling there. Again, a wobble could be the reason for things like Hurricane Charlie, Hurricane Charlie of 2004, and Hurricane Helene of 2024. Um, so it is always fun to watch and note, but you can't really predict wobbles. She could end up heading more north by tonight. We just have to wait and see. But I thought it was kind of fun to show you guys her best track of where she is and kind of shows a little bit of the wobbling that they are notorious for as well, which can be a little bit fun to watch. Okay, then let's talk about the Saharan Desert. So, as she came off the coast of Africa, you're gonna notice if you see anything that is yellow, orange, and red, that is technically dry air and Saharan dust. So, you can definitely see we're still getting large plumes of it coming off of Africa, and you can kind of see her towards over here once it stops moving. And again, it kind of shows a little bit of her arc of, coming north and starting to head south again, which is interesting as well. But you can definitely see her cloud cover is struggling. She is struggling to being able to really get her convection and get the moisture she needs because she is surrounded. We do think that will change going forward, but she definitely has a little bit of a pocket there underneath it, still struggling to sucking in a little bit of that dry air. She is still currently technically over a little bit cooler waters. It won't be until she's a little bit closer to the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles that she will then end up having more warm water where we think she could see significant strengthening from her on that. Again, possibly a major hurricane at this point is what they're thinking. So this is fun to watch, but yes, she is definitely strong. You can see a little bit of the colors being kind of blended in with where the white and grays, where her clouds are. So it's just fun to see that. But it looks like, she is still chugging along and heading Heading to open waters some more. Okay, and then let's talk a little bit about steering current. So as I mentioned about the high pressure that where they were thinking it would be, which is basically counterclockwise rotation, just warm, sunny, dry air, and of course a low pressure can't penetrate that, so it has to kind of coast south of it until weakness forms. So meaning where it kind of the curvation of it ends, and they can enter a little bit freely without anything else coming towards the east to make it more of a hallway for it to move. Um, and again, you can kind of sort of see here a little bit of the steering winds, as you can kind of see how they kind of push her a little bit further south as well. But anyway, so they're thinking this stuff will move more towards the east coast of the U.S. and the Bahamas, which then would push her further west before she can make that escape to the north. Again, it's too early to tell right now, but it's definitely an interesting thing to see and think about. As you can see, looks like we'll have a front of some type up there, and then of course the high pressure, uh, and possibly have something over here as well that could come in and kind of make it get a more of a narrow path for her to escape out to sea. But again, right now we have to wait and see. These are just all models and kind of showing where what they're thinking and where the steering currents are, but it is interesting to see it kind of arcing towards south there. And then as I mentioned yesterday, I like to show this particular wind thing again. It kind of shows again a little bit of the steering currents with the winds, as you can see, kind of moving this way, so you can see the winds coming down south and then branching off to the southwest. As you can see here, this again is on a surface level. Her circulation is definitely a little bit elongated, as you can see a little bit on this end. She does seem to sort of have a closed one in some level as well. But she's not as neat and tight as you would see for a circulation of a better developed storm. She's trying, she is still trying to do that. But right now she's just not there. We are expecting that to change as she continues to track westward. Again, you can kind of see where the currents are pushing her a little bit down toward southern portion of the open Atlantic instead. For reference, this is the southeast coast of the U.S., Cuba, Dominican, and Haiti, and then of course Bahamas, Bermuda, and rest of the islands as well. So definitely interesting to know. Keep no, it does look like maybe it's trying to get maybe another circulation forming off over here. Sometimes they do kind of split, or the center of circulation will move to a less hostile area, which could definitely happen. It could be something that we might see, but right now, looks like she's still just trying to form that and get that solidified over there where she is currently has that center um, for it. So again, to sum it all up, uh, right now it's just watching and waiting time. We won't probably have a better idea again until probably Friday, realistically, once we get models have the information put in from the hurricane hunters flying in, and they can put that in, and we'll start getting a little better. Plus, it'll be much closer to everyone, including Puerto Rico and the Bahamas, and of course the Lesser Antilles. They will be dealing with on Friday, so don't be surprised if we see a watch, tropical storm, hurricane watch, probably a hurricane watch at this point, start being issued for the northern ones tomorrow, as that will be about 2 days out from it being close to Friday. So we'll have to wait and see what that brings. But in the meantime, just again, don't freak out, don't panic, you know, we just don't know. We'll know more as the week goes on. There's no guarantee that she will reach. Even under the most perfect and best conditions, she could still not reach major category, or she could for a brief moment and then weaken significantly. We just don't know. That's kind of the fun about watching these systems is, there's really no way to predict or know what's going to happen. But that can also be terrifying to people as well, which is totally understandable. So again, right now is not the time to panic. If you are in Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic or any of the Lesser Antilles, and the greater Leeward Islands, I would recommend just take time now, start thinking about what do you need to have for your kit, know your plans, have that ready so in case you do end up having the storm come close to you and have actual impacts for you guys, you will be better prepared and ahead a little bit of the curve before everyone else starts panicking closer towards the weekend. So please, again, feel free to follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to place them. I'm more than happy to answer. I did post a short video earlier, kind of giving over a little bit of what the difference is between a tropical storm watch, tropical storm warning, a hurricane watch, and a hurricane warning. I know a lot of people have some confusion around that, so I thought it would be a good time to get that out. So if you haven't had a chance to look it up, please check that out. And I will be back tomorrow with my regular posts and then, of course, the evening updates. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.